Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jason and you're watching Jason Jensen Trains. In today's episode, I am going to show you a technique for attaching two pieces of curved track so that they don't kink. And it's a technique that my grandfather taught me years ago. And I'm sure there's other techniques, but I think this technique works really well. Okay, then we're going to move on to getting some major work done on the layout. And we'll talk a little bit more about placing structures and how to make things look a little bit more interesting. So sit back and relax and enjoy the video. Okay, so very quick, I am going to show you how I attach two pieces of curved track. Now these were straight. I curved them for the demonstration. This is something that my grandfather taught me years ago. Some of you out there may have different techniques for attaching two pieces of curved track. So the first piece of track notice that there are three ties at the end that don't have rail on it. Now be sure to leave the little nails on there. Now I went back and started with this one and cut off the tie plates and the nails on 1, 2, 3. 3 of them. So these two I left, and then started with the third one and cut the tie plates off on 1, 2, 3 of them. That's so that we can slip on a rail joiner. Then I counted about 12 to 15 ties and made a mark with a Sharpie. And notice right below that mark there's actually a spacer in between the ties. You want to cut, we're not going to cut all the way through, we're just going to cut the rail, but you want to leave a spacer underneath it. And then we just simply pull that piece of rail out. Then right where the cut is, we're going to cut away the tie plates very carefully. I actually don't have the right blade in here. They make a blade that is flat. It's straight and just flat at the end. And that's the type of blade that is easiest for this. So we're just going to cut the tie plates and nails, 2 before the cut and 2 after the cut. I'll show you up close after I get this done. So I've cut the tie plates, like I said, 2 after the cut and 2 before the cut. Now we're going to prepare this piece of track, and the track is going to fit like this. So now we'll take our Sharpie, line up this one And then we'll figure out how many ties we have to cut away. Okay, so this is where we're at so far. And that's going to fit on there just like that. First, what we have to do is take our rail joiners. Well, first, I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to make sure that your rails are filed so that they're straight and flat. And same on these. These look pretty good. Now we'll slip our rail joiners into place. Now, normally I would attach this piece to the layout. Then after that's secured in place, you could hold it down with some pins or nails. Then you slide the rail on there. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to talk and explain this at the same time. So you can see I'm just sliding it into those above the tie plates in between the nails. I'll show you in a second once I get these slid into place. Okay. And there it is. Another helpful tip, when you are joining two rails together, you want to use your pliers and have them pretty close to each other. If you have them back like this and you're trying to press those together, you could slip, you could bend the rail. So if you're right on top of it, right outside the rail joiners, and you put those together, they go together really tight. Alright, like I said, my grandfather taught me how to do this years ago. And save your rail for the scrap yard, and save your ties for areas where you'll need a single piece or maybe 3 ties just to fill in little gaps. Okay, so I'm really starting to have some fun now because I'm going to start to build this all up. So we're going to build it in layers, and as you can see, I'm starting with paper patterns. So I am drawing where my roads will be, even drawing on there, I don't know if you can see it, but there's sidewalks drawn. This will be raised up, and the entire thing goes uphill. And we're going to build it up slow with layers. So we'll start cutting out shapes out of this thickness. Then we'll add to it. Then we'll add another layer. And then for our road, what we can do is we can file this so it's a nice smooth angle. And then after we get this many layers built up, then we can use our white foam because that's the same thickness. So we can lay big chunks of this in the back. So I'll just have to show you as we go. It's kind of hard to explain, but like I said, right now I am working on paper patterns. So the road will be on this surface here. So we don't need to cut anything out for the road. But then right here, it starts to go, that road starts to go uphill. So we'll cut all of this out of one layer of foam. Then we'll cut our second layer of foam and start to carve our road. Very important to cut your patterns out of paper first, rather than just jump in and start cutting foam, because the foam is kind of expensive, where paper is very cheap. And already I've changed, I've cut, this is probably my third pattern, just trying to figure it out and visualize it all. There's a lot to plan because this road, there's a four-way stop right here. So the road will go over this direction, and then the road goes through here, but then it goes uphill and goes behind all of this because there's all storefronts back behind here. But I'm just going to build it in layers. Now, I had considered laying one giant piece of styrofoam down really thick and just start carving it, but I think that's easier to do it in sections and just keep adding to it. At least that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so our first layer is in. Now we have to figure out how to cut the second layer. The second layer won't be the same exact shape. For instance, on the road right here, this will get cut, beveled down. I'll either file it, you could use a hot wire tool, a file, a saw, but we'll bevel this so that it goes down to the road and then goes up, and then maybe about here the next layer of foam will get beveled so that road just keeps continuing to go up. So we'll place our pattern back on here and then place our structure on there. I traced where my buildings go onto the pattern. So I'm just lining everything up. Now we can decide so that the road goes right through here. We'll take a piece of paper and we'll mark how wide our road is. So our bevel on this pink foam is 3.5 inches right there. So that is the height of it, and then it'll go level to this level. So that's how long my bevel will be. So I want to duplicate that on my next piece. Maybe we'll put it at a slant a little bit. Okay, so that'll bevel all the way down, and then we'll do 3.5. And so our next piece of foam that sits up here will bevel down to that point. And we'll just continue doing that all the way up. So here is our second piece. Now remember, this will get filed down, and then this will also get filed. So it should be a smooth transition. I'm going to put the template on there so I can see where the buildings go. If you're curious, this structure here is from Foscale Models, and it was in a large kit of theirs called Dead Horse Bay. And then this structure here was in a limited edition kit called Bandit's Roost. Okay, already I see something I don't like. This is too high. And so I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut the pink styrofoam away from underneath this structure so that it sits down on this level. Because that loading dock is way too high. Yeah, so let me take that off and we'll cut it. Sometimes you just don't know until you see it. Okay, so I've cut that off. You know, when you're working on your layout, you want to be very gentle with your structures. They're fragile. They can break very easily. So you just need to be extremely careful with them. Now I'm going to probably, the stone that I used down here, I'm gonna cover the front of that with that same stone. I think that'll really tie it together and look nice. Okay, we also have a structure that sits over here. And again, this is another Foscale kit. I believe this was a background kit. So it was pretty thin. Maybe it's an inch and a half deep. But I added sides to it and a back. I forget what it's called. I'm sure you'll recognize it if you go to their website. That is going to sit here. Now, I do have to take out the doors on the back, on the lower part here, and fill that in. But that will sit right there like that. So I'll simply remove the two big doors and the window, and maybe put some big signs back there, and then there will be all trash behind it. I'll put trash cans, barrels, some boxes. This may get moved back like this. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see how it works out. Because there's another level back here, so this road will continue around and go uphill, either starting here, or once you turn, then it'll go up at a slant right here. Okay, so there it is in place. This is where we're at so far, and you can see I've filed this all down so we have a nice smooth road. And I first cut it with this blade, and I don't know if this is maybe it's called a hacksaw blade, I'm not sure, but it has really, it's a fine tooth blade. And I did each piece separate. So I first carved it, I cut it with this, then I smoothed it out with a flat file, then took 220 grit sandpaper and sanded it. I still have a little bit more to sand here and there, but then once we texture that, you can texture it either with joint compound or our the AK asphalt. That's probably what we'll use. That'll just all get smoothed out. Okay, next I think I will cut my little stone retaining wall. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I do want to show you that the next level, we add a third layer of foam. So, and on the front of it here, we'll have a small retaining wall. And then starting back here, I don't know if you can see my finger, but it'll go down at a slant to meet the road here, because there's a street that runs back behind here, and then there's storefronts all back behind here. I took probably, gosh, I don't know, 30, 40 pictures of what this looked like when all of the buildings were all in place on here. So I just keep referring to those photos on my phone and trying to duplicate what it looked like. And I'm making small changes here and there, like you saw with that building there. It just didn't look right being so high. I think it looks much better now being at that level. So I just wanted to show you quick that you can see we just keep stacking the styrofoam, creating layer after layer, and gradually having it go uphill. Now, in the far corner of the layout, up over that direction, the highest point that it will be is 10.5 inches. So we have to get from this point here, we have to wind this road all the way up the hill until we get up to 10.5 inches over in the corner. So I've got my plaster walls cut to size, and then I just put a really dark gray stain over them. Now I'm actually going to dry brush them and bring out the highlights, and I'll match it to the stone down here. And I'll fill in any little cracks and anything that's, any cracks that do show. I can put weeds or vines growing up to hide it. I think this is going to really look nice and really help tie it in with what we've already got going on here. So I just finished this little structure. I started this probably last night about midnight, and it took me probably 5 hours. This is from Foscale Models, and it was part of a very large limited edition kit called Rust Rock Falls. It also comes with this little sign. This part gets stuck down into the styrofoam, so just that will show. Okay, next we are going to paint some wrought iron fencing. And as you can see, this is from Model Power. Now, I picked this up at a hobby store or an antique store in the bargain bin. It was probably maybe $1.50 at the time. I'm not sure. I've had this for a while. So we'll paint this to look like rusted metal, and then I'm going to take my small drill, and in the posts, I'm going to drill a hole. So in the bottom of the posts, I'll drill a hole, and then I'll take and I hold this with tweezers so that you can see it. I'm going to take a straight pin and I'll cut the head off of them. Maybe cut these in half with wire cutters. And then put that in each post. That way, after it's painted, I can just stick it into the styrofoam. And you can bend it any shape you want, and just because of those pins, once you stick it in the styrofoam, it'll just stay there. And then of course we'll add some glue to it after we get it in place and figure out exactly where we want it. Okay, so I have things sitting in place, and I have moved this building around quite a few times to see what looks best, and I like it being at an angle. In front of the structure on the ground, I may have it dirt. I may have maybe a brick pad or some type of stone. I'm not sure, but I'd like to do something right in front of the little sandwich shop. And then I have to make my sidewalks. You can see I've got my fences put in place. You'll notice I have a wood fence that at one time was painted solid white, but I have it looking like the paint is chipping off due to the weather. I'm going to put another wash over this brick to darken it a little bit, and that'll help this fence stand out even more. I could have easily put this road parallel with this stone wall and just had to go straight, but by just adding that little curve to it and putting that shop there adds so much interest to it. So keep that in mind when you're placing structures on your layout, to just don't go with your first instinct. Keep moving things around and trying different angles and different ways. Like I said, I moved this building around quite a few times, even moved this building around, just playing with different ideas. And I would take pictures of it on my phone and then constantly be looking at it and seeing which one I like the best. And then I want to point out I have different style fences. We have the wrought iron, the wood fence back here. I have a corrugated metal fence running along here. And then I have another wood fence over here that is just bare wood. So I think adding a variety of fences adds a lot of interest to the layout. Well, as you can see, I've placed everything, and this is probably, since I've started the layout, the third time that I've rearranged buildings. But each time I feel like I've gotten more exact about placing the structures and exactly where I want them. Here, I'll put stone on the face right here, but this road, I have to bevel this so that it goes at a slant all the way up to this level. So I'll just cut that down and then put a stone retaining wall right there. And then it'll start to slant down over here and then turn, and that road will come down right here. So it'll go up to about halfway Then I'll cut this at a slant going up, and that street runs all the way behind here and back down to this level. And then I'll start to build up the levels for the road going up the hill. But then again, we have another road this is more of an alleyway or a dirt road that goes over to some large factories over here. I can take the camera off the tripod and give you a quick update and give you an overall look of where we're at so far. So that shot that I just showed you is not by accident. There's hours and hours of planning and constantly moving structures around to see what looks best. And it's taking hundreds of photos and really studying the photos. Taking my camera and getting down at eye level and really seeing what looks the very best. For example, this road, I cut 3 roads out of paper until I came up with this version. Like I'd mentioned before, you could easily have it go right along that wall and put the sidewalk right parallel with that wall. But it wouldn't be interesting. You'll notice there's a little sliver of land and grass will go in there, but I'll probably put in a billboard sign in there. I try to turn everything at an angle. Even this bridge, it goes at an angle. It is not parallel with the edge of the layout. I put it at a slight angle. I don't know if you'll be able to see it better from this side. Here's another example. I could have easily put the track parallel with the edge. There's going to be a road that runs along here, but now I have to come up with either a bridge or some type of stone, maybe small decorative stone arches that carries a road along there and goes over. I'm going to scratch build a structure that sits right here, and it'll probably be triangle shaped, and there'll probably be 3 small storefronts along there, and possibly a small storefront on the back side. And then I'll do a sidewalk, and then the street will come off of here and come around. The road goes up at an angle behind this building and goes uphill and then goes up till it reaches this level right here. This entire corner is land, and there will be a large structure there from Foscale Models called Rust Rock Falls. Now it's great because that structure sits in the corner, so I can take the back side of the structure and either add to the height of the structure or build a whole nother structure out of it. So it's nice once I get up against the wall and I don't have to do all four sides of the building. I'm working on this water tank, and it is a plastic kit, and I'm painting it to look like wood. I still have more layers to put on it, and I'm probably going to darken up these bands a little bit more. Then most of you probably recognize this building. It is an old plastic kit. I've added a deck to it and the stairs going down. I mentioned it in a previous video, but this is a kit that I'm going to be working on with Carolina Craftsman kits. Just from here to here. And then I'm starting to add to it already. And same on the other side. I've added another pier with a couple buildings. I really like this pier coming out here. I'll probably have some people on it that are fishing off the side of the pier. I have another boat to paint from rustyrail.com. This structure here, I have to build a pier that it sits on. And then there will be a long pier right here that has a kit bash structure on it. There's probably 3 to 4 kits from Foscale Models all combined. So here is the drawing of the structure. So it is, I believe, 4 kits from Foscale Models. And it's pretty long. It'll take up that whole area. And another boat. Well, it's the next day. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning with a vision and just had to go into my workshop and build this mock-up. This is going to be a 24-hour diner. I'll probably replace this sign with a custom-made sign for the diner, but it'll be that size. So I just wanted to get a feel for what it'll look like. Then we have a couple stores, and I don't know if you can see it. I might be in the light, but there's a storefront back here, and then on the back side over here I will put a door back here for the apartments up above, and I may have a sign hanging off the corner there that says rooms. And I'll put lots of roof details, vents, and chimneys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Just remember, no matter what skill level you are at, just keep modeling. The only way to improve is through practice and by making mistakes and learning from your mistakes. So the key really is time and patience. Well, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And until next time, happy modeling, everyone.